this leads us into the 3 pillars of success that we talked about briefly, okay? The 3 pillars are what we do as a company. Each one that we're describing is what we do as a company. And it's all to make sure the 3 areas that make up every business on the planet are operating at the highest possible levels and taking the philosophies of the companies you see on the screen right here. There's so many outside of healthcare philosophies. We just talked about one of them, reciprocity, that consumer expert companies are so good in. And there's so many of them that you can take and put into your practice that give, and that's the beauty of this, is it gives the patient a much better experience at the same time, but it helps you win at the same time as well. Both sides win. And there's a definition that I just described that we're about to hit here in just a little bit. So 3 pillars. So some growth numbers that I want you guys to see of practices that implemented these 3 pillars and what happened to their growth. Okay, Dr. Regina Blevins, she's faculty for Invisalign, a very high producer, grew at this level. Okay, and this is again just from the 3 pillars that we're going to be talking about. Dr. Ann Haggard went from a $1 million practice to $2 million in right under 3 years, and she went from preferred to elite in Invisalign in 18 months. Okay, all of these things are extremely powerful, but these 3 pillars have to be implemented. Mark Oblinsky, top 1% for the first time. He grew about $1 million in a couple of years. Heather Lindsay, $400,000 first year. This gentleman here, Brad Liker, $400,000 as well. So I want to put those number values on what it is we're about to talk about, because the facts are they work. They work. They work for companies like Starbucks, but they absolutely work for you guys as well when implemented. I want to start with a story before we dive into these 3 pillars. All right. About 6.5 years ago, we started this company, and I had sold off. I had grown a plastic surgery operation as a 1-practice location in LA. We went to 250, using exactly what we're going to be talking about tonight, the exact same things. And when we sold it off, I had this idea of what I wanted to do, but I didn't know exactly what it would look like. I didn't know it was going to be in dentistry. I had no idea. And I'm sitting at my house one day, and I'm hopping on Craigslist because I had to do a couple things, and I see this ad. It was a couple weeks after I got back to Houston, where we're based out of, and I see this ad on Craigslist for a practice in Pasadena, Texas, Robert Stewart, that was looking for a marketer. So I said, okay, maybe this could be our first client. I still didn't know we were going to be in dentistry, so I submit the resume. He calls me, I think the next day, and says, Brian, what in the world are you applying for this job for? And I told him, I said, this is the idea that we have for the company. Let me come in and talk to you. He goes, okay, come in. So we have about a 30-minute hour discussion. And he goes, okay, I'll buy it. You're hired. And about 8 months goes by, and they hit Premiere with Invisalign for the first time ever. I didn't even know what Invisalign was. We literally never opened our mouth about Invisalign in his practice ever once. I'd seen it on commercials before, but that's where my expertise ended in. So he hits Premiere for the first time ever, doing it for 10 years, and in comes his Invisalign rep, Sheldon. And Sheldon was there to say congratulations to Dr. Robert Stewart. Hey, awesome, you hit Premiere, good job. What are you doing differently? And Robert Stewart said, go down the hall and talk to that guy. And I was that guy. So I talked to Sheldon about the company and these 3 pillars and how outside of healthcare expertise has to be brought inside healthcare because of how competitive it is now. And he kind of buys into the philosophies, so he goes, okay, I'm going to start referring you to our practices. So the growth numbers of some of the ones you've already seen, he puts us in Mark Oblinsky. He gets top 1% for the first time. He puts us in Ann Haggard. She goes preferred to elite, 18 months. It was just one after another that is skyrocketing their growth, but their Invisalign growth with it. And I couldn't figure out why, because literally not one of those practices did we ever open our mouths about Invisalign once. It never even came up. It's because of this. Because after I studied it and I realized that Align Technology has gone direct to the consumer to create brand awareness on your behalf that you otherwise would have to spend millions of dollars to get people typing in your own practice name. You get people typing in Invisalign on Google all day long. And I realized that when you set your business up internally properly and you set it up digitally properly, the Invisalign numbers skyrocket, even if you have kind of a bias against Invisalign. Because we work with doctors that say, don't even bring it up. We don't even want to hear it. We hate it, don't want to do it. I say, okay. Because you don't have to. The way you get them to grow the numbers is you just get this installed properly. Because there's so many people looking for it. And the beauty is that same philosophy applies to all the other treatments across the board. Okay? So I think it's fine that I think it's necessary to tell that story, to kind of know our background, because 6 or 7 years later, now we're, I'm the speaker for Invisalign. I don't even know how it happened. It's still it's been an unbelievable journey. But it's very important because we're going to dive into these 3 pillars, and the first one is management.